sponsored by Model Makers Workshop. Need parts for your next model project? Model Makers Workshop has you covered with the best aftermarket accessories around. And by Gaahleri, your one-stop shopping for all your airbrush needs.
Hello, this is Ken, and thank you for tuning in to the Model Building and Retirement channel. And just like the title suggests, I'm going to show you how you can get show car finish results with the new Kaleido Colorworks water-based acrylic paints. I already did one with an orange color, but I thought this time I was going to step up the game and try two of the most difficult colors, in my opinion, to paint and get right, and that is black and metallics. So here I've got graphite gray metallic with cosmic black out of the Kaleido Colorworks 24 automotive set. Comes in this box right here. Also in this video, I'm going to show you how you can save a lot of money on some new airbrushes because Gaahleri has a special sale going on November 18th today through December 1st on both their website and on their Amazon store. And I'll have a link in my description to both, and I will have discount codes. So on top of the sale prices they advertised, you'll get an additional 10% off if you click the links on my description and use the discount codes that I have listed in my description. I'll tell you a little bit more about it during the video too. So enjoy. Let me show you how it's done. Okay, so today we're going to be doing another Kaleido Colorworks test. Kaleido is the new water-based acrylic lineup of paints provided from Gaahleri, the airbrush company. I did a video previously with an orange color that came out pretty sweet. I'll have a link in my description for that video. But this time I wanted to put it to the test with what I consider some of the more difficult colors to paint. So in this particular kit, I am going to be spraying a two-tone paint job, and I'm going to be using black, which is the hardest of any kind of paint to do to get a nice finish. So that is going to be a test. This is from Kaleido. It's K302, and it's called Cosmic Black. So it has a little bit of pearl in it. I think that's going to be a pretty cool color. And I'm going to be also shooting a graphite gray K316. It's a metallic gray color. So metallics are also a little bit on the difficult side to spray. So this is going to be the perfect test to make sure that my orange paint job that I did on my 32 Ford two-door that came out very nice wasn't a fluke. So this is definitely going to be the test of all tests. I'm going to first start out with primer. And they have different primers. They have, I believe it's a white primer, a white matte primer, a gray primer. But in this case, I'm going to be using their acrylic black gloss primer. So when I spray this, it's going to look very glossy and black, and that's just the primer color. That's going to be my base, and then I'm going to do my silver, and then I will mask off and do my black again. I am going to be adding just a little bit of the retarder thinner. So for example, if I have like 10 milliliters mixed up in a cup of the primer, I'm going to put about 10 drops of the retarder thinner in there. So I'm not diluting it very much at all. And if I just put this in a cup, then I'll only put like 2 or 3 drops of the retarder. And that just helps it flow better and the appearance is a lot better. And incidentally, Gaahleri is going to have a major Black Friday sale. On their website, it launches on November 18th. And on Amazon, it launches November 20th and lasts through December 1st. And they've got some incredible prices coming up on that. So take a look at the slide I got shown on the video right there. And I will have links in my description to both the Amazon store or directly to their website. And for the website, use discount code ModelBuildingKen and you'll get 10% off additional, I believe. And I am waiting for a code for Amazon, so be sure to check back on that. It will be in my description. So I'm going to be shooting this with the Gaahleri Mobius TG 0.5 millimeter spray gun with the trigger and a fan tip. However, this one I noticed is on their sale. This is their entry-level brush, which I've been using all along until just very recently, and my paint jobs have been outstanding. But for example, this brush here is normally $55, and it's going to be on sale for $29.99. So you really can't beat that price, so be sure to check it out. All right, so I'm all dust-free, washed, and ready to go. I will meet you at the spray booth.
Okay, so we're at the paste spray booth here, and I'm spraying with about 20 psi pressure, and I'm spraying very, very light coat here just to get the color into all the nooks and crannies and make sure I don't have any reactions. Being sure I got the underside and the edges, and then I go for the top. Overlapping my passes approximately 50%. That is a fan tip, so it does spray pretty well. And then when I get to the body, I carefully get all the bottom edges, the wheel wells and whatnot first, all the hard to get areas. And once again, I'm just dusting that paint in just to get a little bit of color in there. If you just try to nail or wet that coat, it's just going to run all over the place for you. So once I get all those bottom edges done, then I'm going to go ahead and start with nice even passes starting at the bottom of the car and working my way all the way around. And I'm going to speed this footage up a little bit. I'm going to go 2x. At this point, I noticed I was getting a little bit of a reaction with the paint to the model, and the model was thoroughly cleaned. I think it may have been a drop or just a little bit of moisture in the gun from the last time I cleaned it. I have no other explanation for it. So I gave it about 10 to 15 minutes to flash over and went in with a second coat, and that reaction, whatever it was, went away, and the second coat covered any of the imperfections quite well. Once again, I'll speed this up to 2x. Okay, so the primer has been allowed to cure for about 24 hours, and I even had that in my little dehydrator for about 5 hours at 105 degrees. Fairly smooth, but a little bit bumpier than the lacquer-based primer I normally use. So I am going to just sand this down lightly with 5/1000 Trizact wet sandpaper and smooth that out real good before we go to any color. So I'll sand that now.
Okay, so I did the body and the hood with 5/1000 Trizac. And just to make sure no scratches show through in the end, I'm going through with some 12/1000 mesh cloth sandpaper. I mean, this is normally what you would use before you go to a polish, but I thought it wouldn't hurt to hit this first with that. Okay, so all the sanding is complete. It smoothed out really nice. Now, one thing is when I use like Mr. Surfacer primer or my lacquer primers for when I'm going to do my solvent-based enamels or clear coats, I never have to sand my primer unless I had like a dust or a hair in it or something. But in this case, it was pretty orange peeled. And that was probably because maybe I needed to thin it a little bit or whatever, or adjust my pressure. It's not a big deal, just an observation. But I wet sanded it all down nice and smooth, so it is ready to take the paint. And again, I'm going to do a two-tone with Cosmic Black and Graphite Gray. So what I like to do is my first color is going to be my light color, and this gray is going to cover that black really nice. And the other reason is when I go to tape off, I would rather have, if there's any residue at all that shows at all, and of course there shouldn't be any, I would rather be on the gray because black shows everything. So I want my black to be pristine. So when I go to clear coat, I want the black to be the last thing sprayed before clear. So I'll meet you at the booth. I'm going to go straight out of the bottle. It's supposed to be pre-thinned. And if necessary, if I don't like the way it's spraying, I will adjust by adding a couple drops of their retarder. Okay, so I'll meet you at the booth.
All right, back at the booth, I'm using my Mobius 0.3 millimeter airbrush and using the paint straight out of the bottle with no retarder or reducer involved. And it tested real good on the spoon there as I sprayed it. I plan on doing 3 coats, so this is the first of the 3 coats. And it's going to be a very light dusting. I'll be sure to get all my little edges and nooks and crannies with that light dusting because that allows that paint to really get into all those little details. And I'm going to go ahead and speed this up to about 2x. All right, so I waited about 5 to 10 minutes after that first coat because it was a very dry coat. Normally you're going to want to wait about 15 to 20 minutes between coats. I had the same issue as I did with the orange paint job, trying to transition myself from the enamels over to the water-based acrylics here. I sprayed a little bit wetter, trying to lay that paint on real nice like I would with the enamel, and it was flowing out of the gun great, but it just goes on too muddled looking. The metallics just don't lay out right. So I went ahead and finished the coat and decided to wait about 20 minutes between my next coat, and I made some adjustments, which I'll tell you about when I get to that third coat. I'll just speed this one up for right now. Okay, so after 20 minutes, it's time for that third coat. I'm trying to show the camera view of that muddled looking appearance, and I don't know if you can really see that there. I tried to zoom in on it, but it's there. It might not come over through camera too much. You can see it a little bit. Anyways, Craig from Craig's Corner, a good friend of mine. I'll have a picture of his channel up above and a link to his channel in my description. But he's out of Michigan there, and he and I had a lengthy conversation about the Kaleido paints the other day, and he had found the same situation. So what he did is he increased his air pressure. I think he went to about 30, I went to 25. And if you notice, I backed off. I'm about 10 inches away now, and I'm spraying very light to let those metallics just kind of lay down. And that really did fix that paint. That muddled look kind of went away. Definitely a different experience than what I'm normally used to spraying. I'm going to hold my judgment until I'm done with everything in clear coat, because that's really where it's going to come through. Once you've clear coated and polished, that's what you got out of your paint job. So I'm going to speed this up for the rest of this coat. Okay, so the gray metallic has cured overnight. So as you saw in the video, 3 coats. First coat was extremely light. Second coat, I just tried to get it on there a little bit toward the medium side, and it was covering well, but it muddled again on me, which just gives it a terrible appearance. You know, it doesn't spread out the metallic like it should. So I let that cure for 20 minutes and went back with a very dry coat with the airbrush way back, turned up the pressure to about 25 psi, airbrush maybe 10 inches away, and just did a real light dust coat from a 10-inch distance. And that gave it a better metallic appearance, in my opinion. It looks better. The clear coat will be the tall tale. Okay, so now we're going to just smooth that up a little bit, and I'm going to get all my edges smoothed so that when I do my bare metal foil, it's not going to be bumpy at all. And then we're going to mask off and do two-tone, because the roof is going to be black, and this whole upper back and trunk lid will be black. So I'm going to get some wet sanding done. I'm going to use some 8/1000 Trizac just to smooth the areas where I'm going to do the black, and then we'll get the masking. All right, so I'm masking off for two-tone here. A lot of people ask me what I use for masking, and I like to use a vinyl fine line tape for a crisp edge, and then I'll use my frog tape to mask the rest of it. And the frog tape is very much like the Tamiya. It's like a low-tack masking tape. I'll find a link and I'll put that in the description for you of this. Now on this car, it's pretty easy to do the two-tone because it is divided by the stainless steel trim. So I'm essentially just masking off somewhere within that trim line, because that is going to get bare metal foiled. So I can have the transition can be anywhere in that trim line and it'll look fine. So I'm going to get that down first, and then I'll mask the rest of the car.
and I'll be back. Okay, so I got it all masked off for the second two-tone paint job. So again, I use my vinyl tape for the crisp edge. Even though it really wasn't required, it would have been okay just to tape even with just the frog tape along that trim line. But just I use it. It's just force of habit. And then I finished off with regular masking tape. And I even do inside the windows and stuff because you don't want overspray getting to the part that's going to remain silver. So I kind of blocked off all the avenues, except for that one. Even the engine compartment is going to remain silver. So I kind of got that masked too, so overspray won't collect in there. So I'm just going to make sure there's no dust on there. I'll use my anti-static brush right before I spray. And I'm going to be spraying with Kaleido K302 Pearl, and it's called Cosmic Black. So it's got a little bit of pearl in it. It looks like a lot of pearl here. Almost looks gray on the bottom. I'm hoping that once I shake that up a little bit, it's more black. So, going to use that straight out of the bottle, but if necessary, if it's spraying on a little too thick, I might use a couple drops of their retarder thinner. So let's go to the booth and take a look.
Okay, once again, I'm using my Mobius 0.3mm spray gun, and my intention was to be spraying about 20 psi pressure, and it sprayed out really nice on the spoon. Of course, I sprayed it wet there. For some reason, I get better result on the spoon than I do on the model. So, anyways, just like the silver, my first coat of black is a very light, dry dust coat, just to get color everywhere. But I did notice it was spraying a little bit strange. It just seemed a little too dry. And I had forgot to turn my pressure down from the silver. If you remember my third coat, I had boosted my pressure up to 25 psi and shot from a higher distance. Well, this paint's pretty sensitive to that pressure, so I realized what had happened, and when I went to the second coat, I adjusted back down to 20 psi, and it went much better. I'll speed this up a little bit here, then we'll get to that second coat. Okay, so as I begin the second coat and had realized that my pressure was set at 25 psi, I turned it down to 20. And I did add about 2 drops of the retarder to my bowl there and back flushed it a little bit to get mixed up real good. And it sprayed so much better. And I am noticing that, this was a pearl color, but I'm noticing their pearls and their solid colors, primary colors, spray so much better. I'm really happy with those. The metallics take a bit of practice because to get that metallic down, you got to really dust it on like I did on that third coat on the gray. I keep calling it silver because it came out a little lighter than the gray I was expecting, so it does look silver to me. But anyways, this is the second coat. It went on so much better, and after this, I waited a full 20 minutes and went back for the third coat, and we'll be on that third coat here in just a moment. Okay, so we're on our third and final coat of the black pearl. And this, again, I'm comfortable spraying this color. I pushed it a little bit. I'm at 20 psi pressure, and I am laying it on a little bit wetter, more toward my traditional way of spraying and watching that reflection in my light. The tricky part is that this flashes over very, very quickly at the very surface, so it hazes up on you. So you got to look quick because by the time you're done with the bottom of the panel and move to the top of the panel and look back, the part where you started is starting to haze over a little bit. So, you got to get used to that because you don't want to keep laying the paint on, you'll run it. But it sprayed out really well.
Okay, so the paint has been allowed to tack up for, about 20-30 minutes. I like to remove my masking while the paint's still tacky and pliable, because if it hardens up on you,
it is possible that some paint will come up with your tape. But you can see how crisp that fine line vinyl tape does. And again, we didn't need it here because it's in the middle of the chrome that we're going to be bare metal foiling anyways. But if you had to have a hard, crisp paint line, you can see how nice that is. So finished out pretty good. I can see the pearl in there. So anyways, we're going to let that cure up overnight, and then we'll sand and clear coat. Okay, so I was debating whether or not to do the bare metal foil after clear or before clear, and I decided to do it before clear. And I had a couple reasons. One of them is I had put a couple decals on there and I needed to let them cure. And two, you know, these old 50s vintage cars have lots of chrome trim. So with handling the car, it's possible to peel up that bare metal foil at times. So I'm going to bury it in clear and see if that'll help us out here. So got the car all cleaned. I used a little bit of window cleaner to clean the residue from the bare metal foil. I was afraid to use alcohol. I think it's a little too aggressive. But it cleaned up really nice, so I'm ready to spray. And I'm going to spray Kaleido Acrylic Varnish Gloss. So this is a water-based, ready to spray. I'm going to try it as is, but if I need to, I'm going to use a couple drops of their retarder thinner just to allow it to flow out better. So I'll be able to tell after the first coat there. And I'll be spraying with my Mobius 0.3 millimeter airbrush, and I plan on spraying about 20 psi pressure, and my plan is to get 3 to 4 coats. So meet you at the booth. Okay, so my first coat of clear I'm shooting without any extra diluting, straight out of the bottle, about 20 psi, and spraying a medium coat, light to medium. Tell you what though, I am liking this new booth, especially for the camera angle, because before I had this, I used to have to straddle the tripod between my legs and reach both arms around the tripod and the camera, and it was very difficult to see what I was doing. Gave you guys a pretty good view, but it was difficult for me. But now I really like this. I'm able to get that camera totally out of my way, off to the side, and I can kind of zoom in here. And I think your view is still adequate. I don't think it's a bad view at all. I do have to get used to painting though with the light, because I like to look at the reflection of my paint in the light, and it's just a little different than it was, so I have to turn the model a little bit further to see that. I'll get used to it, but I'm loving it so far, and absolutely no fumes even when I sprayed lacquer in it the other day, so I'm very happy with that. Okay, and then once I finish this coat here, I let it sit for, since it was fairly a dry coat, I only let it sit for about 15 minutes before I started coat number 2. Okay, after 15 minutes, I start the second coat here, and once again, light to medium coat, slightly wetter than the first coat. I sprayed a spoon really nice and wet, but then I back off a little bit on the model. You can always put more paint on, but if you flood it too much, then you got a problem. The Kaleido clear varnish does spray very nice though. The only paint that I'm having any trouble with at all was the metallic gray here. You know, as you probably saw earlier in the video, it just kind of muddles on you. You gotta really back off with your gun, spray very dry and increase your pressure. But the black pearl sprayed very nice, and so did this clear. Okay, so we're in the second half of the 4-coat paint job here, and on this 3rd coat here, I just increased the wetness a little bit more. So I'm now wet, I'm approaching a wet coat, definitely above medium. It's bringing on really, really good. The only thing is you're going to allow a little extra dry time. So after this, I did allow 20 minutes before my final coat. Okay, we'll jump ahead to some fast forward action here. Okay, then we're off on the 4th and final coat. I noticed when I was spraying the spoon, I had a little bit of a spitting issue there. And it's one of the downfalls with the acrylic paints is, especially when you have to wait like 15-20 minutes between coats, it was what you call dry tip. The clear started to dry right around the tip of the airbrush, and it just wasn't putting out the paint. Thought I had cleared it, and then when I went to do the hood, I could still tell that it was a little bit light. It wasn't spitting or damaging my paint job at all, but I could tell it just wasn't right. So I cleaned it a little more thoroughly, and I just used a little cleaner and paintbrush at the tip of the needle there to fix that. So my intent on this 4th coat was to really get a nice wet layer of paint on there, make everything nice and glossy, even though I'm going to sand and buff afterwards. And I thought I was doing so, but when I finished the session here, I realized that I was still a little bit dry. I wanted to go a little bit wetter, and I immediately jumped into hitting it with a heavier coat. And I really wouldn't classify it as a 5th coat because this was all done within seconds of the coat. You know, if I would stopped even for a minute, then I would have had to wait about 20 minutes. But here I am looking at it and decided to lay it on there a little bit heavier. So basically when I went back, I'm kind of hosing it on there. I'm going pretty wet on it. I'm still seeing that issue where it kind of hazes on you before you're done with a complete panel. You just got to get used to that, or I got to get used to that. Doesn't affect the end paint job, but while you're painting it, it kind of throws you off a little bit. But this concludes the 4th coat. Okay, so 4 coats of clear has been applied. It's been dried for about 2 or 3 hours now, but I'm gonna put that in the dehydrator overnight and let that really cure up real good. So perhaps tomorrow or the next day, I'll start color wet sanding. But looks pretty good. That was 4 coats of clear, as you saw in the video. Okay, so it's the next day, actually about 30 hours after I sprayed it. And in that 30 hours also includes about 6 hours at 104 degrees in my dehydrator. So it is time to work some magic. So I'm going to start color sanding, and I'm going to start with 5 thousandths Trizact. Then I'm going to move to 8 thousandths Trizact and finish with 12 thousandths mesh cloth. Then I will go to polishing. As you can see, it's a wet sanding process, so keep a little bit of water standing by and keep your sandpaper clean. Make sure it don't get contaminated by anything. And just very light pressure, sand in all directions, including circles, whatever it takes, but just very light pressure. Let the sandpaper cut the paint and not you. All right, so I'm going to speed this up to about 4x, and then we'll come back for the 8,000 Trizact. Okay, this probably isn't going to look much different to you, but I'll include it since it's a tutorial. 8 thousandths grit Trizact now. It's my second layer. The first one was 5 thousandths, so I'm just going over it again very lightly. It's going to look very much like the same. I will speed that up, and we'll be back for the 12 thousandths. Okay, so as you can see, as the grit increased to 8 thousandths, that the shine is getting a little bit better, and then this 12 thousandths is really going to bring it up to where it's getting very glossy, and then the compound and polish will take it from there. So once again, I'll speed this up. This time I'll speed it to 8x. Okay, so I've done 3 thousandths, 5 thousandths, 8 thousandths, and 12 thousandths sanding. So I'm going to go to polishing now. Okay, so I'm going to start buffing, and I'm going to use Meguiar's Plast X, which is clear plastics cleaner and polish. And I'm going to use a brand new swath of flannel, and I just cut this from an old flannel shirt, and I keep them nice and clean, and I don't mix them. I keep one with the compound, and I keep one with the polish. So I'm just going to apply little drops on each panel here and just hand rub it in, and then wipe it off with the clean microfiber towel. And I'll keep reapplying it until I get the finish that I'm looking for. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward this to 8x speed, and then we'll come back for the next step. Okay, so we can see the finish is getting glossier and glossier as we go along. So this is after applying the Plast X. So the final step in the puzzle is Meguiar's Ultimate Polish with Gloss Enhancer. And it's applied the same way. I just put a little drop on each panel, and I buff it in with another clean flannel swath and a clean microfiber. And this one I let haze over a little bit on the entire body before I wipe it off. And this is the final step. Okay, so here we are after all the polishing has been completed. And I got to tell you, the Kaleido really doesn't reveal its full beauty until after the sand and polish. And this is my second paint job with that. And again, this is the most challenging colors I can pick for the job. And the end result is quite outstanding. But throughout the entire paint job, you're not seeing it. It just doesn't look like a show quality paint job until it's all sanded, buffed, and polished. Reminds me of my one-to-one days painting in the garage. I'm a terrible painter, full size, but once I sanded and buffed, my paint jobs look like a $20,000 paint job. So let's get this on a 360 table with some good lighting, and let's take a look at the final results. So here we are on the 360 table, and that the gloss and reflection is incredible. It's every bit as good as my 2K clear can do. I don't think the preparation work is much more difficult than 2K clear either. I mean, I always sand, buff, and polish that as well, so there really aren't any extra steps. I would think the hardest part is slowing down during the paint job and the time you got to wait between coats. 15 to 20 minutes between coats versus my solvent-based stuff at 5 minutes tops. But then again, the benefit is you have no fumes. Okay, this is just another view here so that you can see the reflection on the roof a little bit better. And let's look at a couple slides or two while we're at it.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that video on how to get that finish on that Kaleido's acrylic, water-based acrylics. I'll tell you what, I mean, as you're spraying it, I said it in the video, as you're spraying, you're not really seeing that end result until you do that sanding, buff, and polish, which, I do on every car anyways. But once you get all that done, I'll tell you what, it's hard to tell the acrylics from the solvent-based stuff. So, it's a good alternative for the people that just cannot deal with the fumes. So, if you live in an apartment or you're spraying in your bedroom or whatnot, give Kaleido a try here. So, and once again, I have links in my description for the paints, for the website where 10% off using my code. And I also have the links for their Black Friday and Cyber Monday sale on their airbrushes, where you get an extra 10% off using the codes that I have in my description. So be sure to check that out. You can't beat the prices on those airbrushes. So we'll see you very soon. I'm going to work on the 56 and get it built. So maybe in another week or so, I'll have that built. But we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.